All right, I am back to discuss the movie Maximum Overdrive as for this episode. This has kind of been a movie that's somewhat been on my radar for a while now, and I finally getting around to doing it. I guess I decided to do it at a somewhat imperfect time, if that makes sense, with everything that's going on, I should say, and everything, where people basically have to self quarantine and kind of stay away. So I decided to do this movie for around this time. It's a Stephen King or whatnot. So getting into basically what the movie is about and the cast and everything real quick. So of course it's directed by Stephen King, which I'll talk more about him in a second. But the movie is basically about a group of people try to survive when the machines start to come alive, and it stars Emilio Estevez as Bill, Pat Hingle as Hendershot, Laura Harrington as Brett, Yeardley Smith as Connie, John Short as Kurt, Ellen McElduff as Wanda Jean, J.C. Quinn as Duncan, Christopher Morney as Camp Loman, aka the salesman, Holter Graham as Deke, Frankie Faison as Andy, and Leon Rippey as Brad, and Giancarlo Esposito as video player. That's what he's credited as, the video player. And like I said, it was directed by Stephen King, his only directorial film, that is. And there's so much reason why this is his only directed film. And the biggest reason why, and Stephen King admits himself, the reason why this is his only film that he's directed and the movie is completely all over the place, is because he was high on cocaine doing this film and doing a lot of the 80s. He was high on coke, and when you kind of go into this movie with that in mind, you kind of understand why the movie is the way it is. It's kind of all over the place. Some of it doesn't make a lot of sense. Some of the characters is belligerent and over the top as well. But I guess, like Rick James say, cocaine is a hell of a drug. So getting into talking about this movie, the movie opens up with a like an opening scroll, and it's talking about Earth. It's basically cycling into the orbit of this. There's a comet and some other with the scroll and everything, and Earth is basically entering this stratosphere of where I guess there's some weird stuff is going to basically go down. And then we cut to a guy played by Stephen King at the ATM, and as he's trying to get some money out, you see where it says on the screen about "you're an asshole," and he turns around to his wife and it's like, "Hey honey, come here, this thing just called me an asshole," or whatnot. And then it cuts to the bridge and everything, where these two workers and everything, they're playing a card game, and all of a sudden the bridge just kind of malfunctions, and I put that in quotation marks, malfunctions. And we get probably one of the amazingly chaotic bridge destruction scenes, where people just basically get killed as the bridge decides to rise up, while people are on the bridge and cars and everything is trying to, people that are trying to survive the bridge, and they're basically getting killed right then and there. Like I say, it's a crazy way to open the movie, and everything. And of course the soundtrack, I got to talk about that. The soundtrack is done by AC/DC. It's probably one of the best collection of music and scores that they did specifically for the movie. Sadly enough, that some of the musical scores on this soundtrack, they would never like release the music from the soundtrack, which, like I said, is a really good soundtrack. So after the whole bridge thing, we kind of go to the Dixie Boy truck stop, where we start to meet what would be our main cast of characters. Of course, like I said, you have Bill, played by Emilio Estevez, who's like the short cook or whatnot. Wanda June, who is the waitress that all the guys pretty much try to hit on and stuff like this, and Hendershot, who owns the Dixie Boy, which I'll talk about him in a little while. And then of course Joey and Duncan, who are like your main gas station attendants or whatnot. Those are people that you meet that works there, and we are introduced to the Green Goblin truck or whatnot, which is driven in by Frankie Faison's character of Andy, and everything. He's the one who drives the Green Goblin truck to the Dixie Boy, and I always wanted to assume, because that truck is the one that shows up first, that's the reason why it was possessed first and everything. But in a way, it's kind of good because it's the one that has the face on it, so it gives a face to this whole thing. Is once things get started, you know exactly who the leader is because it's the one with the face. And I thought it was kind of interesting that they went with the Green Goblin of all things, especially with Stephen King. I'm surprised it wasn't a clown on the front, because that's his thing or whatnot, clowns or whatnot. But I mean, there's a clown on the back of the truck, but as far as the front, it's the Green Goblin head. So while they're there and everything, the first sign that things are kind of going off going off kilter in a way is where Duncan, he goes out to fill up the Green Goblin semi truck, and as he's in the process of doing this, the gas it stops pumping or whatnot. So for whatever reason, he decides to take the nozzle out of the truck and starts looking in it. It basically got his face like right there at it, and something was bad gonna happen. And of course it happens, where the gasoline, it shoots right up into his eyes and he flips out or whatnot. And I always find it funny too, because when after Joey and the other worker, they take Duncan, and they're kind of like, Mr. Hendershot, we got an issue here with Duncan. And he's like, what's going on? It's like he took a douse of diesel, and so he's like, just flush his eyes out. He's like, I've got some talking to do here, like leave me alone. Like he really doesn't even care that this man just got doused in the eyes with diesel fuel and everything. But like I said, that's one of the first instances that happens or whatnot, as far as like the machines like slowly coming to life, as far as what they notice. But speaking of Pat Hingle, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, like one of the first things that I remember seeing him in was Batman 1989, where he plays Commissioner Gordon, and that's kind of what I always noticed him for. So he was always the nice guy and everything and things like that. But then as I started getting more and more into watching movies, of course, this is still me as a kid, watching movies and stuff like that, I saw him in movies like Hang 'em High with Clint Eastwood, where he plays this kind of swarmy judge or whatnot and everything. But even that, he's still somewhat well reserved. But then when I saw him here in Maximum Overdrive, and I mean, this is 3 years before Batman 89, and he just really is off the rails in this movie. I mean, just from, he refers to everyone as Bubba, and he's always up to some type of scheme. I mean, the first sign that that this man isn't like on the up and up as far as from a business standpoint is the whole Duncan incident, where he got an employee who gets basically injured on the job, and he's like, I could care less about it. But then the second instance is where he basically has Bill in his office, and he wants him to work for 9 hours but only clock in for 8. And I'm assuming that that's not including lunch or anything like that. I'm assuming like he just wants him to work those hours, and Bill is like, I'm not doing that. Like, hell no. Look, I'm gonna work my 9 hours. I'm gonna get paid for my 9 hours and everything. And we kind of get this backstory where Bill is he's on parole and everything, and Hendershot is basically using that to his advantage in regards to do this. And then we find out that there's quite a few people who actually work there that are on parole and that Hendershot is doing this with. So he's basically, keeping money from these particular workers in a way. But throughout the movie, Hendershot just does a whole lot of ridiculous stuff. And I mean, I'll talk more about him later, but it's just funny seeing Pat Hingle play this role. And he's probably like I want to say the only one who truly gets the movie that he's actually in. I think everyone else kind of plays it a little differently, but I think Hendershot is like the true epitome of knowing exactly what this movie is and everything. So as we're moving past that, the next incident that happens at the Dixie Boy is where Wanda June, she's kind of trying to scramble the eggs that Bill left on while he's in the back talking with Hendershot. And while she's doing this, the electric knife that's right there at her arm, it springs to life and just slices her in the arm, and she freaks out. And everybody is like, "Oh, you okay, honey?" and everything like this, and like did that thing, and she plays it so innocent, like not realizing that these dudes could care less if she was injured. It's like they just wanna. It's like they're trying to take a run at her, but even with the fact that she's been injured or whatnot, in the way she plays, like, well, yes, I was cooking the eggs, and next thing you know, this thing, it bit me and everything. And Bill, he rushes out and all that, and he basically beats the thing to death when it starts to spring back to life again. And everybody's trying to figure out, like, what the hell is going on here? First, the whole thing with Duncan. Now this, like, something weird is amiss going on. So that's one of the things about the movie I do like. It doesn't just, like, all of a sudden happen. It's like certain instances is slowly a progression of the machines, springing to life. I mean, because they don't know anything about what happened at the bridge or at the ATM and stuff like that. I mean, there's certain things on the radio that you start to hear, but once the machines truly take over, the radios go down, so you don't hear anything from what's going on anywhere else. So the next thing I have to talk about here, of course, is Giancarlo Esposito in one of his earlier roles, and he only has one line in the freaking movie, which is "Your mama." And he, for some reason, he's in the game room, and he's it's like he's just in there. And I don't know if like there was certain scene, like if there was more with his character that was cut or something, because the way it's sliced together, it's like, okay, he's just randomly in the game room, and the game start coming, kind of going haywire, and the cigarette machine starts shooting out all these cigarettes and everything. So what does he do? He starts cramming them into his pockets and everything, because that's what black people do over there. When you see a bunch of cigarettes, when you see a bunch of cigarettes, you just start cramming them into your pockets and everything. He's basically trying to steal the cigarettes, and then it's like no one notices that this game room is going haywire and everything. And while he's in there, he's getting ready to leave, but then all of a sudden it's like one of the games, it starts calling him in a way, so it like puts him in a trance, and he walks over to it, and then it basically zaps him and tosses him across the room. And then that's when everybody realizes, like, oh, what's going on in there. And they go inside and they see him basically burn kind of pretty bad or whatnot, and he's basically the first victim of the Dixie Boy as far as the death goes or whatnot. But I just find it interesting that like this was one of his earlier roles, and of course we know the career that he's went on to have since then, and everything. But it's just crazy to see him like play a role like this. Like it's basically a nothing role, but because if you know who he is, when you see his face, like, oh, that's the dude from such and such, and things of that nature. So after that whole thing happens, we go to the baseball field where we're introduced to Deke and his baseball team, and they just won the game and everything. And as they're celebrating and stuff like that, the coach is going to get them some sodas and everything. And then the soda machine, it starts shooting out sodas, and it kills the coach in front of the kids. And everybody's like, what the hell is going on here? And then some of the other kids get killed in the process. But this is one of the craziest things, it scenes that you'll see in a movie, because I mean, if you know anything about Stephen King and his stories or whatnot, Stephen King has no problem of putting kids in a terrible situation and killing kids or whatnot, and we get that here, and it's done in extreme ways. I mean, you don't really see when the soda cans kill the kids, but you definitely see when one kid is trying to haul it across the field on his bicycle, and he falls off, and he's laying there, and then come out of nowhere, this freaking steamroller comes crashing through the gate or whatnot, and it runs this kid flat over. And he just watches it for a second, then he hauls ass and gets out of there. But like I said, it's one of the craziest scenes that you'll see in regards to kids being killed off in a movie. And I mean, that's one thing about Stephen King. He has no chill when it comes to doing harm to kids in his stories or in movies. So after that, we're introduced to freaking Brett and the sleazy salesman, because you never hear his name in the movie. So I don't know how Camp Loman even became his name, because you never hear his name in the movie. It's always that sleazy salesman or that salesman or whatnot. And they're riding down the highway, and he's being extremely sleazy with her, because I guess he picked her up a ways down the road, and he's asking her like how far is she going, and then touching all on and everything. And she's trying to listen to what's going on the radio, because you're getting like bits and pieces of information on the radio. And she tells him to pull into the Dixie Boy, and at first he doesn't want to do it, so she grabs the wheels and slides them off into the parking lot and everything. And then he flips out on her and everything. And while that's going on, that's when the Green Goblin truck springs to life and damn near runs him down, and she pulls him out of the way by his tie, which I always laugh at that. She yanks him out the way by his tie. And everybody trying to figure out what the hell exactly is going on here with these machines, starting to freak out and everything. So, I mean, in a way, I think he should have got ran over right there and there, but that's just me. Now, okay, so I want to talk about probably the worst character in this movie. And I'm talking about one Lisa Simpson herself, Yearly Smith, as Connie, the newlywed wife of Curtis, which I always find it funny that his name is, their name is Connie and Curtis or whatnot. And she is just annoying from the moment that they come into the movie. And she just is always nagging, and it's just, her voice is very annoying. She's putting on this like real southern accent, and it's just, I mean, I understand that the character is supposed to be like scared and stuff like this, but I feel like it got too much. And there's one scene in the movie later on, when they're leaving the Dixie Boy, and one guy that's helping her down into the manhole. And as she goes down, he literally like gives this, oh my God, this freaking woman, like, will she just shut up? And I feel like that's what all the viewers feel, his pain in that moment, because she really does. It just, every other word is Curtis this and Curtis that and Curtis, somebody do something. Oh, look at that. It's just, will you just shut the hell up? Type of thing. And I'm surprised that they didn't have Curtis actually flip out on her and tell her like, "Will you just shut the hell up?" or whatnot. But the odd thing is that she actually survives the whole goddamn movie. It'd been nicer if she'd have been killed off just so she would have finally shut up. If the machines would have got upset enough and just killed her, they would, because they probably got tired of her nagging or whatnot. But she is literally the worst character in this movie. So going back to the character of Brett, played by Laura Harrington, this is like one of the few things that I've seen her in, because I actually looked at her IMDb just to see like what else that I might have known her from, and I never realized that she was actually in What's Eating Gilbert Grape in '93. But what's crazy about it, this movie kind of comes out like in the, I want to say like the middle of the run that she was kind of having. She was also in one of the movies, another kind of off the rails type movie, The Adventures of Buckaroo Bonanza Across the Eighth Dimension, which I might actually do at some point on the podcast. I haven't decided exactly when I'm gonna do it, but I do plan on doing that movie at some point. But I don't remember her in that, so when I watch it again, I'm gonna have to definitely look out so I can notice her. But Maximum Overdrive is like the biggest thing that I know her actually in. And then as I look through her filmography, it's like there's quite a few movies, like I said, she showed up in that. No, she did some TV stuff, and she was also on 2 episodes of Quantum Leap, which I don't remember at all of her in. And she was also in The Devil's Advocate, which I don't remember her in that either. And the last thing that she was in was an episode of the TV show Providence in 1999, and she just stopped acting. But as far as her in this, she starts out as kind of one way as a character. You thinking that, oh, she's gonna be like this tough as nails type of hitchhiker chick or whatnot. But once she gets to the Dixie Boy and she kind of gets hooked up with Bill, she kind of becomes more reserved and takes a lot of a back seat in regards to a lot of stuff that goes on. Yeah, she's like there at the forefront. She has things to say, but as far as like from a hands-on perspective, she really starts to take a back seat to a lot of things. And I just thought it was kind of interesting that they had like such a character change with her. But I thought she did a good job in the movie and everything, but I always noticed like that characteristic change of her once she gets there. And it's almost like it's done purposely, because from the moment that she goes into the bathroom and changes from her hitchhiking, jeans and t-shirt or jacket into more, she puts on a skirt and this, more of a top and everything. And it's like, she becomes more like, it's bad to say it, but she becomes more like a woman in a way. Not as bad as Connie, of course, but she really takes a back seat. And I feel like that was more Stephen King's thing about it or whatnot. But like I said, I don't understand why exactly they decided to go that route with her. So the next thing I want to talk about here is, so Duncan, he decides to, after they kind of flush his eyes out and everything. Now he can't really see hardly anything, but you realize that Deke, the kid from the baseball team, is his son, and he's like, I gotta go find my boy and everything like this. And he's trying to leave, and everybody trying to stop him, like, look, man, you can't see nothing or whatnot. Like, how you gonna go out there and try to do something with all this crazy stuff going on? And Bill tries to stop him, but he tells Bill, like, my boy's out there. He said, I gotta find him. Don't you understand? I gotta find my boy. So he kind of shuffles off, because Hendershot is like, if you clock out, if you punch out now, then you don't punch back in. It's like, really? It's like, we're in an extreme situation that's going on, and you worried about whether or not somebody's punching in and out, and everything. But that's just how Hendershot is, right? So as he's trying to leave and everything, the Green Goblin springs to life once again, and it runs him down. And no, it wasn't the Green Goblin, it was the other truck actually that runs him down. And it, like I say, I will say this is one of those scenes, like, you can't tell like when it stops being the actual actor to when it's the dummy that gets run down and everything. So I did think that they did a good job of like slicing that together and everything. So he gets killed off and everything. But the special effects for this movie, I felt when it comes to the trucks, is very good. That's one of the things about this movie that always impressed me, is like how they did a lot of that with like when they show like the the clutches being moved and the engine being turned on with no keys or anything in it. I've always wondered like how exactly did they do a lot of that stuff, because there is no one like in the seats, inside the trucks when all this stuff is going on. So like, okay, I'm pretty sure they're like pulling some strings or whatnot, but at the same time, like, how could you just do some of that with just pulling strings and things? So there's a lot of good practical effects when it comes to this movie from the truck standpoint. Another scene too that's kind of interesting in that regard too is the whole thing with the when the little army truck comes up with the freaking gun on it. Like, how the hell did they do that too? Because that's always been one that kind of was interesting to me too, like how they pull that off. So after that happens, Connie and Curtis, who are like the only people on the freaking highway at this point, they stop off at another gas station and whatnot, and they see like a dead body or something. Curtis almost gets run over, and then they jump back in the car and they take off and they head towards where the Dixie Boys, because they basically getting chased down the road by another truck and everything. And Curtis manages to like swerve enough to where that truck goes flipping off the down to a ditch and explodes and everything. And then they said they're like a couple of miles from the Dixie Boy. So they get there to the Dixie Boy and they see where the trucks are basically like taking over. And Connie's basically like haggling them and everything. It's like, oh, you said when we get here everything will be okay, but look at it now, ha. You know, just basically like antagonizing. I would have been like, you get your ass out of the car with that, but that's just me. So Curtis, he's watching like as the trucks is like going around in a circle and everything. He's like, you see that gap right there? He said, next time it come around, I'm gonna go for it. Which he does, and you think you're like, oh, he's gonna make it. Then right at the last second, freaking truck comes out of nowhere, side swipes him, and they flip over. You hear Connie screaming, of course, like a maniac, and Bill and Brett, they run out to, you know, basically try to get them and everything, get them inside. And as they're running back, we get where Hendershot is there with him and Joey, but Hendershot is there with a freaking bazooka. And he shoots the thing and blows up one of the trucks. And I mean, I've always tried to understand exactly what Hendershot says here.
All right, Bubba, giving up your homesick. Fucking truck's supposed to be depot. That was a depot to sure. Reload with Joy. Come on, reload, me boy.
And so I put the subtitles on, and it's funny, like up to a certain point of when he's talking, it's like the subtitle just gives up on trying to figure out what he's saying, really, because it just gets to a bunch of like gibberish. It's just gibberish at that point. And it's like, what are you saying? But it's crazy with Hendershot. But it's like one of the funniest scenes in the movie from Hendershot point of view, because he's like enjoying the fact that he got this freaking bazooka and he's basically like Rambo or something, and he's blowing like some of these trucks up and everything. And you know, so now we got everyone now at the Dixie Boy and everything. So like I say, all of our main characters here. But going back to Brett and Bill, their relationship, like how it gets formed, like real quick, like, because there's a scene when Bill is outside, he's like inspecting the Green Goblin truck and trying to figure out like how the hell did this truck turn on when Andy still has the freaking keys and everything. So how the hell is this truck even doing? So Brett, she comes out there and she tells him right off the bat, like, hey, you're kind of cute and everything, which Bill's like, he kind of started blushing and whatnot. She was like, look, you cute, but you're not that cute. And he's like, well, maybe I'm going to grow on you or something like that. And it's like not even, because the movie pretty much takes place over the span of, I want to say two days maybe. So like I say, right off the bat, because that first night that they're there, I mean, they have sex, and it's like, that's interesting. It's like you just met this dude and everything like that, and you already, you know, laying on a freaking mattress with him down in the basement somewhere. But it's just kind of weird, like how their relationship just quickly is formed. But once again, I think that comes from Stephen King just kind of putting characters together and just like, okay, here, have at it. Like, this is a natural way of this would progress. Which I'm not saying it wouldn't, but I think it just kind of happens a little too fast, in my opinion. So, one of the other things I love talking about when it comes to this movie is going back to Wanda June. Because if Hendershot is like over the top and insane, Wanda June becomes like that as well. Because one of her most famous scenes, in my opinion, is when she does the "We Made You" of rant.
They can't. We made them.
Now look, honey, you're gone and hurt yourself. Now come on, sweet thing.
Don't you sweet thing me.
I wanted you, baby. Just
They can't. We made them. You can! We made you! No, you can't! We're just sweet thing! We made you! We made you! Oh, we made you! We made you! They can't! We made them! We made them!
And everything. And just how she flips it and just goes completely insane and everything. She runs outside and yelling like, we made you and everything. Why are you doing this to us when we made you? Type of thing. So it always find it funny too, because that's like one of the songs that plays in the movie as well, about who made who, we made you, and everything. But it's one of those scenes that really sticks with you when you watch the movie. So in the process of everything that's been going on, now the salesman, he gets hit and dumped off into a ditch, because going back to when Duncan was killed, that same truck that ran over Duncan smashes into his car, and everyone's trying to tell him like, hey, look, like, you know, get back inside, because if it ran this dude down, what's it gonna stop you from running you down? But you got there yelling and screaming and whatnot. So as he's yelling and screaming at the truck that killed Duncan, the Green Goblin springs to life, and it finally runs him down and knocks him down into a ditch, and you assume that he's dead from that point on, because the Green Goblin truck just did not like him from the get-go for whatever reason. It didn't like him, so it finally got him at this point. So as time is going on, they realize that the salesman is still alive, because you hear him like yelling from the ditch and everything about about save me and this, that, and the other. So Bill and Curtis, they decide to like go on a little mission to try to save him. And if it was me, I would have been like, the hell with him. I'm not going out there. Like, I'm not going to try to save him. He's dead anyway. Like, so, but how the hell was he still alive? I still don't know. But while he's in the ditch and everything, they decide to go through a different building and go down through the sewer system or whatnot in order to get to him, and everything. So the next thing I want to talk about is Hendershot's last stand, as I like to refer to it as. So it's the next day, and now that Deke has managed to make his way to the Dixie Boy and everything, he finds out that his dad's been killed, because Hendershot he does tell him like, your daddy was run down by one of those big boys out there and everything. And of course Deke, he starts crying, and they kind of like, you know, chastise Hendershot for, you know, like, damn, could you at least been a little bit more cordial about telling the kid that his dad was killed and everything? And Hendershot just looking crazy. So the next day and everything, when they're kind of there, because there's this one shot in the movie where it appears that Hendershot and Wanda June had sex, because he comes from the back and he's like pulling his pants up, and then we see Wanda June comes from behind and she's like fixing her waitress outfit, and it's like, like, what the hell was going on back there? But and everything, while they're there just kind of trying to figure out like what they're gonna do next and everything, this bulldozer comes up and it smashes Hendershot's car up, and he gets pissed, so he takes out a gun, takes out the bazooka, and he blows the thing up. And while he's doing that, the little army truck thing had showed up, and it shoots him down and everything, and kills a couple of the other people that was there as well. But it basically got rid of Hendershot. So Wanda June, she flips out again, and she runs out there with the bazooka, and then she gets shot down. So basically they both get shot down together in a sense. But in the process of getting shot down, she like fires off one of the bazookas and blows up one of the other trucks as well. So one of the craziest things about this movie too is when the trucks when they start to realize that the trucks want gasoline, and it's like, well, if they don't give them the gasoline, then the trucks will probably just run out of gas and everything, and then everything will be over. But they decide to fill all of the trucks back up, and it's like, well, why the hell would you do that? I know there's a line that's said in the movie about the fact that if they don't do it, then the trucks will probably just run all through the place and destroy everything. But even so, but why would you give them more fuel? because even if they did that, they wouldn't be able to get more fuel either way. So I don't know, but I would just find this thing kind of interesting, like the fact that they decided that they would refuel the trucks, and they do, and everything or whatnot. So after a little bit more time there, they decide, like, look, we can't stay here forever or whatnot. So Bill and everybody, they decide to leave the Dixie Boy, and they basically go out through the same like sewer system that Bill and Curtis did when they went to try to go save the salesman and everything. So they flee like that through the woods, and they blow up the Dixie Boy, and they leave. And so of course the Green Goblin and the other trucks, they get, you know, pissed about this, and they basically, now the weirdest thing about this movie is, like, how the hell does the Green Goblin truck sneak up on them? He basically followed them, but at the same time, because this is a semi truck, so those things are not quiet at all. So this thing manages to sneak up on them in some type of way, and as they're getting to the docks and everything to get on a little boat to sail away, the Green Goblin shows up, and it kills Leon Rippey's character, as he was, I don't know exactly what he was doing. I don't know if he found a joint or something, because he was all like smiling and whatnot. He's off by himself, and you see the Green Goblin like in the background, and then it springs to life, and then basically it runs him down, and then Bill blows up the Green Goblin truck, and then they all get on the sailboat, and they go sailing away and everything. But one of the things I never noticed about the movie until watching again now is how much the ending to this movie is very, very similar with what they did with Dawn of the Dead. And actually, I should say that in reverse, that Dawn of the Dead ending, the remake of Dawn of the Dead with Ving Rhames, is very similar-ish to the ending to Maximum Overdrive. And then when you think about it, Dawn of the Dead remake is kind of similar with a few character-wise to Maximum Overdrive in a lot of ways. So I always wondered, did they kind of take like inspiration from this movie as well? I mean, of course it's a remake of the original Dawn of the Dead, but looking back at it now, it's like, I can kind of see a lot of similarities with this movie as well. So that was always, especially the ending of getting on a freaking boat and getting out of Dodge or whatnot. So the movie basically ends with them on the sailboat, and we get this scroll about that there was a comet, and also too that a UFO was destroyed in outer space, and then after some days went by, everything went back to normal. And I always like the last line of that. It's like the survivors of the Dixie Boy are still survivors, so they didn't die. They still managed to live, and everything like that. And everything just kind of goes back to normal after they pass through this weird flux. And the whole thing about the UFO, I guess, was channeling, controlling the machines or something like that, maybe. But the scrolls don't really make too much sense. But once again, this is coming from the coked out mind of Stephen King at the time, so a lot of the stuff didn't make sense. But before I get out of here, I just want to talk about Emilio Estevez, because around this time his career was very interesting from the standpoint of the movies that he was doing. I mean, of course, this came out in '86, so this is after this is after The Outsiders, which was in '83. He does Repo Man in '84, which I reviewed a while back on the podcast. He does Breakfast Club in '85, St. Elmo's Fire in '85 as well. And then he does this in '86. And then '87, he's doing Stakeout. And then '88, he's Young Gun. So even though he was a part of that Brat Pack era and everything, but he always his career was always very interesting from the early 80s to the early 90s. He was doing some like stuff that was like all over the board, and this movie and Repo Man are like two of the biggest standouts of like weird, like off-center type of movies that he was doing. he didn't stick to like one form of a genre or whatnot. He did like cross over into other different types of genres and do some like weird, type of movies. Weird but cult classic type movies, because this is a cult classic, so it's Repo Man's a cult classic. And everything. But I just found it interesting like how his career was, especially around this time, and if you look at the movies that he was doing around this time and everything. But he does a good job here as your lead and everything, and you can kind of see some of the Billy the Kid isms a little bit, especially when he started like shooting guns and stuff, and that kind of wild laugh that he would be known for with the Young Gun movies and everything. But I thought he did a good job here and everything like that. So of course, before I get out of here, I have to go with a favorite character. It has to be that of Hendershot, even though he's like the worst person there is, but it's just the way Pat Hingle plays the character. It just, a lot of the stuff that he says is just over the top, and even though the subtitles don't even pick up half of the stuff of what he's saying, he's just a bunch of gibberish basically is what he's saying and everything, but he's just over the top and just a fun character to watch, even though you don't like him, but it's a fun character to watch on screen. And I feel like once his character is killed off, you do kind of lose a little bit of what makes this movie. And if I had to rate the movie, I would give it I'd give it a 2 out of 5. Is it a great movie? No, it's not a great movie. Is it entertaining for all the wrong reasons? Yes, it is. So if you got like an hour and a half to kill or whatnot, I say just check it out and enjoy it for what it is, because that's basically what it is. You're not getting no Academy Award winning performances here, but if you just want to see a bunch of people just trying to survive an extreme situation and everything, and there's some laughs and there's some dark humor in it, but like I say, it's one of those movies that is so bad it's good, but you can kind of see why it's the only movie that Stephen King has ever directed. So, all right, well, thank you guys for listening to this episode. Anyone who's a long time listener, thank you for listening to this episode again. If you heard it way back in 2021, and everything. First time, if you're listening to the episode, like I said, let me know what you think about the movie Maximum Overdrive. Who's a favorite character? Who's your least favorite character in the movie and everything like that? Of course, you can follow me all over social media, on Threads, the J Giles. Also on Instagram, the J Giles, or the show page, JMT Podcast, over on Instagram as well. You can find, of course, all of the movie talk episodes, a part of the TV Zone Podcast Network, wherever you listen to your podcast and everything like that. And of course, if you are listening on YouTube, just comment down below how you feel about the movie, your thoughts and everything, anything that you want to share with me about Stephen King, Maximum Overdrive, Welcome to Derry, which I will be doing at some point. I will be talking about Welcome to Derry, and everything. And like I say, again, unfortunately, I could not do a new episode, and everything. So 60 Nights of Fright, 90 Nights of Fright. Even though I wanted to have something out, I wanted to put something out. So I went back into the archives with this episode and everything like that. I actually enjoyed talking about Maximum Overdrive and talking about Hendershot and his nonsense, of course, and everything like that. So again, thank you all for listening. I will be returning, I want to say after Thanksgiving, with a new episode. It may or may not be where I'm talking about Welcome to Derry, the first 5 episodes, and everything like that. So if it's not, it could be something else, because sometimes the card is subject to change for my sports fans, especially like wrestling and boxing fans. The card is subject to change, right? And everything like that. So again, thank you all for listening. Hopefully you have been enjoying 60 Nights of Fright that turned into 90 Nights of Fright. And everything. Unfortunately, like I said, of course, I couldn't do a new episode, which I'm kind of bummed about and everything. But I did want to get on the microphone and just kind of talk, in current day, to where you heard me from 4 years ago talking about Maximum Overdrive. So again, thank you all for listening, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.